Okay, this is what I call a spiked granny, because in every granny square you go spike down into the row below it. And if you look carefully, you can see that it goes into the stitch in front of the hole where you have the two sets. Then it comes down below the set into the stitch below it, and then it comes into the next set. So instead of having 3 stitches come in between the sets, it comes on either side of the hole and down through the hole. So it's a spiked granny. I like it because it's a lot denser. You don't have most of the holes that you get in a granny. All you have is the ones that go off in the corners. It makes a good sized blanket. There's 15 panels. They're 13.5 inches each. So we'll be doing 3 across and 5 long. And it makes a good sized twin blanket. So I took a picture of the whole blanket on my mom's queen size bed laying across it, so you can get a good look at what it looks at, and I'll have that on right now. See you in a minute. This is Red Heart Super Saver, pretty in pink. Okay. This is one of 2 variegated. This is called Berry Pooling. It's all Red Heart Super Saver. This is the Red Heart Super Saver. Whoop. Amethyst. Huh. It was printed funny. It's kind of wiggly. Anyway, there's the amethyst. I know it looks blue. I can't help that. This is the second variegated. It's called Macaw. Also Red Heart Super Saver. And the outside one for the squares is Royal Super Saver. Now this is 7 ounce. This one's 7 ounce. This is 7 ounce. These 2 come in 5 ounces. Okay? And just to be on the safe side, make sure you have 2 of these, because you don't know how it's going to turn out or what you're going to do with it at the end. It's always nice to have an extra one of those. These, because they're outside colors, I would also get 2 of them. Okay? All right. Don't fall off the table. I'm using an eye hook from Bally's. I like their hooks. You use a nice, reasonably short tapestry needle. It isn't really pointed at the end, but it's not super blunt either. The larger super blunt ones you want to use with your really thick yarn. This is good enough to get in where you need it and to hide your threads. All right. First step, the center granny square. This is a regular granny square in all ways. Nothing different, nothing complicated. And that's how we're going to start it. So you bring your yarn over the back of your hand, bring it around 2 fingers, twice. Hold it. Take your feed yarn, bring it back, hold it. You bring your hook up under the 2 short threads, grab the long one, pull it out, and we're twisting it. I'm going to do that again. Go up under it like this, grab it, and twist. Now you can pull a loop through that and it won't undo. There you go. Your tail should always be, no, we don't pull you yet. Your tail should always be headed in the same direction your hook is, because you're going to crochet over it. Now we're going to chain 2, and this will equal the first double crochet in the cluster. We wrap, go backwards through the hole, go backwards into the yarn, grab some, pull it through 2 loops, grab, pull through 2 loops, wrap it, back up into the circle, bring your yarn through 2 loops, bring your yarn through 2 loops, and that equals our first granny cluster. Now we're going to chain 2 for a corner, and we're going to make 3 more double crochets. Okay, that's our second side of our little square. Chain 2, make a third set, you know, I actually started making double magic circles because every time I did a single one, it came apart. And then I found out how to do it right the first way, and I decided I still like the double circles. I don't have to weave in the center any more than it is. Because if you think about it, since it goes around, well, it goes around twice, and then you're going over the tail. So 3 times. 3 times you have 12 stitches in it. That's pretty good, huh? Now this is the end of our 4th side. So we're going to chain 1, and we're going to close our circle. And you pull in the tail. Like that. See how this is the one that got smaller? On the same end that the tail comes out of, you pull that. There we go, see? Then you pull the tail. There you have it. Very simple. Now, where's my scissors? I like to leave a tail. I can cut it off right to the end. But if I leave a tail, then I always know where my back is. Now, because we're doing 2 colors, 2 rows of the same color, I'm going to close this with a single crochet. So go through here and through here. Why did I do that? Because if I try going through this whole chain here, I'm going to have a mess. I'll show you. Now see how it pulls this apart? And it's going to make a mess up here. So I go through the back of the 3rd chain, the top chain, and I go through the back of the stitch next to it, and I have 2 strands over my hook. Pull through 1, wrap, pull through 2. That is a single crochet. Okay? Once more. You don't wrap first. You go through. Now, get out of my way, baby. Bring your hook through, bring a loop through. You have 2 loops on your hook. Wrap and pull through both of those, and that's a single. Now this is the hole for your corner, and that's your single. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to do 2 more double crochets over the shaft of that single crochet. Now, that's the second part of this cluster here for the corner. Okay? So we're starting at the end of the cluster. Do not chain 1. Go right to the next corner. And we're going to do 3 double crochets. Chain 2 and 3 double crochets. And this is your normal granny corner cluster. You find in almost every granny pattern. Okay, that's one corner. I'm just going to zip through the next two here until we get to the end. Chain 2, 3 more in the same corner. No chain between. Chain 2. Okay, now here's our last, the side we started with, the corner. We're going to put 3 double crochets in here. Now because we are changing color and we're not using the same color, I'm going to chain 2 and slip stitch in the same spot I put the single crochet before. Here's the top of the chain right here. And I'm going to use the back of this loop and that one. Look, come on back, come here baby. That gives me 2 chains. And it keeps it from splitting away from the rest. See there? Nice and tight. Okay. Now how I like to do this, I take this part here and I pull it through till I feel it snap to the back. And I hold my thumbnail there and pull. It's small. Easy to get around. Okay? Okay. Here's the yarn we're going to use for our first variegated Red Heart Super Saver, and it says pooling on it. It doesn't matter what color you use. You go down to any yarn shop and put colors together. Or if you have most of the colors and you want to find a variegated that goes with it, go down to the yarn shop. Okay, so we put our hook through the hole, any corner, bring our loop through, I'm going to use guys, there we go. Okay, I'm going to drop the other tail, chain 2. Now all I'm doing is, it ends up very thick if we don't kind of tighten things up, and that's what I was doing. I just tightened it up. We put 1 double crochet in the corner hole. And now this is where we start the pattern. Right in this stitch that goes to this line here, you have 1, 2, 3, you have stitch, stitch, and stitch. I'm going to go right through both threads of that, pull up a loop, and do our double. Okay? Now, every corner is going to have 2 in the hole and 1 on the side. Now, here's our hole. We have a stitch on this side, a stitch on this side, and the hole. So we're going to wrap, go into the first stitch, and do a double. We're going to wrap and we're going to go down here into the chain below the hole. I'm going to go down in there below the hole. Bring your loop up nice and high so it's well above your line. and finish your double crochet. Now this is the one after the hole. We go through that loop and do our double crochet. And that's what the pattern's going to look like all the way around. Without making a chain, we go into the next, whoops, almost did it again. We go into the stitch before the corner. Do 2 double crochets in the corner. One and 2. Chain 2. Do 2 double crochets in the corner. And we do a double crochet in this first stitch that goes around the first shaft. Okay, without chaining 1, we're going to go into the stitch in front of the hole. Now with this bottom thing here, you can't really tell without looking which one is the center stitch. So you have to kind of look in there and see what's going on. This is the stitch that belongs to this line. This is the stitch that belongs to the middle one. And this is the stitch that belongs to the end one. So you want to wrap and go into the middle stitch. Pull it up until it's well above your working surface. And complete your double crochet. Then we go into this stitch right after the hole. Okay? So there's your pattern. We wrap, we go to the stitch in front of the corner. And we do 2 double crochets in the corner. Whoops, 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 whoops. There we are. And chain 2. And we do 2 double crochets in the corner. I did the knot wrong on this one. This is a square I did before. So I have to fight my way in that little hole. And you do here's the next hole. We do the stitch before the hole. The stitch in the middle. So we want the one that goes around the central shaft here. That one. Now if you don't bring your stitch up above your surface, at about the half mark of your double, then your edges are going to go in. So you'll have your pattern will be like this. Now we're going to wrap, go into the stitch before the corner. 2 stitches in the corner hole. Chain 2. Two stitches in the corner hole. And you started covering up, but that's the stitch you want to go into. There you have your second corner. Okay? Into the stitch before the hole. In the base. In the stitch before the corner. 2 in the corner hole. Now this is the corner that we started with. So, all right, we are back around to the corner where we started this row. I put 1 in the stitch before the corner, 1 in the corner, another one in the corner, so edge and 2 stitches. And I'm going to come back with the same color, and I need a starting place for my next row. So instead of chaining through 2, I chain 1, and I'm going to slip stitch where I did in the other, which is the top of the chain 3 and the back of the stitch next to it. Bring a stitch through, 2 loops on the hook, bring a loop through both of those, and that's your single crochet. That is the shaft of your single crochet right there. So we're going to chain 2, and we're going to wrap and come down around the shaft of the chain 1. Okay, and need to go in the stitch right beside this. We're going to right in here. We got 1, 2, 3. We're going to go in the hole that we slip stitched into. Then we're going to wrap. Here's our next hole. Go in the stitch in front of the wrap, in front of the hole. Go into the stitch on the bottom and go through the stitch on the side of the hole. There we go. Okay, so we're starting the pattern on the second row of the color. Go to the first hole before the first stitch before the next hole. Down in there, back up. And in the stitch on the other side of the hole. Now you will notice when we do this, from now on, you only have 1 stitch that does not have a hole in it. That does not have a stitch in it. 1 stitch is free in each time. From now on, you don't have to worry about which hole it is. That's only on when you come down to this first row, because you didn't do the stitches on either side on that one. Okay, so the stitch before the corner, two stitches into the corner, chain 2, 2 stitches into the corner, and 1 stitch after the corner. Okay, and that's it, going around. Do make sure you bring your loop up, or your sides are going to bow in. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and go around, and I'll meet you back at this corner, okay? And we're going to put our next color on. And we're back at this corner we started with on this row. Do 2 in the hole. And we're finishing this color, so we're going to chain 2 and slip stitch. Whoop, 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 whoop. There we go. There we go. Okay, we're going to add our purple, our amethyst. Go in any corner, and I'm going to pull up a single loop this time where I don't go around 2 threads. I like to use this a lot of times because it's a lot thinner and harder to see where you started, but you have to remember this bottom loop is going to come loose, so you have to go back and tighten it until you tie it in. So I'm going to go around through the hole again with 1 more set. This equals 2 double crochets. Wrap and go through the hole right by the corner, the stitch. Okay, and we're just going to continue the pattern. I'm still experimenting and learning with this camera setup. The lights keeps changing in this room because I have regular light bulbs. I have a lamp that has daytime light on it, and that makes ripples in the video. I have a little lamp on the side that's made for using with video or camera. And it's got all kinds of settings, and I have to keep changing it according to how much sun is coming through the window in front of me, or not, if it's nighttime. And every time I move this to stop, I have to bring it back and try to find the same setting I had it at. So, yes, we got different lighting, and we got different closeness, and we got all kinds of things going on here. All right. All corners of the pattern part of this square is exactly the same. You go into the stitch next to the corner hole, 2 doubles in the corner hole, chain 2, 2 doubles in the corner hole, and 1 double next to it. The very first stitch next to it. There. Okay, you going around, I'll meet you back over here. Okay, now we're continuing with the same color, so that means we chain 1 and we go in and do our single crochet. That's our shaft we're going to crochet around. Chain 2, come down around that shaft and do our second double, because that counts as our first. And there we go. Skip 1 stitch. The next stitch is the one next to the hole. And we continue our pattern around. I like this pattern because it covers up a lot of the major holes in the granny, and all you really have is the corner holes, and they kind of look pretty. It's little teardrops disappearing into both sides. There it is. Okay. So, going around, and I'll meet you here and we'll put on our next color. Okay, we finished our third color. We're going to chain 2 and slip stitch. I already cut the yarn. Okay, here's our macaw. Lovely variegated. And we're going to use a different, another way to hook on. It's not my favorite, but a lot of people do it. You make a slip stitch. Put your hook through the slip stitch. Okay. Go where you have to go to hook on. Pull it nice and tight. There. It leaves a little bar in front, a little knot in back, but overall you won't see it that much. It's just not my favorite way to do it. Chain 2, do a double crochet in your hole, double crochet next to it, and off we go with our pattern. It really is a simple pattern. It just looks really cool the way it interacts with each other. So, no problem. Now after the 2 rows of this we'll be going with the royal, the dark blue. It really gets me the way the purple looks, the amethyst looks blue to me on the screen. I wonder if it will in your players or not. Get in there. There we go. Okay, now you can do this without me. So, you know how to do your corners. Okay, go around. When you come back here, you're going to do the 1 stitch next to the hole, 2 double crochets in the hole, chain 1, and do a single crochet right here in this little junction right here. Back of that one, back of this one. Chain 2, do a double crochet over the shaft of your single crochet, go around. When you come back to here, you chain 2 and slip stitch. Okay? Now I'll be back for the finish of this side. Okay, we're back at our beginning again. And because we're not changing colors, we're using the same one. We're going to chain 1, do a single crochet, chain 2, go down over the shaft of our single crochet, and we're ready to go again. Okay. And when we go around this time, we're going to chain 2 and slip stitch. I'm going to put in all my ends, and then we'll come back and start the last color. Okay. See you back around. Okay, we're finishing this one. And the next stitch we use is the next color we use is going to be royal. There we go. There's my needle. There you are. Okay, we're finishing this one. And the next stitch we use is the next color we use is going to be royal. There we go. There's my needle. There you are. I'll just stick this down in here so it doesn't give me trouble. Go right through the stitch we put it in. Come out the back. I'm just going to sneak along in the back of these loops. You don't want to go forward where it can be seen in front, see? Make sure you're not pulling your knot down. So sneak along in back of these loops here. This doesn't have a loop over it, so I'm going to wrap around in it. Okay. Now it doesn't show in front. Doesn't show in back. Okay. Don't run away from me. I gotta turn this light off. Turn this one on. It's dark outside now, and I have too much there we go. How's that? Okay. Let's see if I can get a little brighter over here. Like I said, I'm still learning. Is that better? There we go. Okay. Now we're going to go back. We're going to go around a stitch that we haven't gone into, which would be this one, I guess. We're going to go back along the same row we went down this way. And I'm kind of twisting it around in an effort to snag the same thread that went that way when I go that way. That really locks it in. I don't care how many washings you do, it isn't coming out. Works really good. Okay. Let's get it over here on the right side. And this is another way that you can do it, starting with a slip knot. You take your tail and you hold it about as high up as a double crochet or whatever size stitch you're going to do. You wrap around. See how I brought that around the shaft? Go through my edge and do my double. Well, it is thicker, but you don't really notice it after it's a part of a grouping. See? When we come back, we go right in where this slip stitch is, because that is the first, second, third. That's the first stitch right here. Okay? So, once more, you know how to do the design. So you go around and you do your 2 rows. Well, actually go around with this row, and I will come back and what do I do here? Ooh. I went on the other side of the hole. See? Went in this one, skip this one, go into this one. If you make mistakes, you could fudge them too on the next row. You say, oh, I made that mistake. You just pretend like the hole's there and go through it anyway. Nobody will know the difference, and you won't be able to find it yourself when you're done. Guarantee it. Okay. Go ahead and go around. I'll come around and hook into this with you, and we'll go up to the second level. Okay, here's the last way I'm going to show you how to add on using a slip knot. Okay, you take the place you're going to add on, and you hold the tail so that your stitch is about as high as the stitch you're going to be making, whether it's a single, double, or what. You wrap your yarn, you come down in your hole, pull through, and pull through. There you go. Now this is the same height. There we go. When you come back, this first stitch here, since it's an independent stitch of its own, you go right into it. So when we go around, we're going to come back into that stitch. Okay? And we're just going to go back and go through the motions. do our design. And I'll come around and show you how we slip stitch into that beginning there. And then we'll go up to the second row. We're going to do something different at the end of this color. I'll tell you what in a minute. Here we are at our last corner. Chain 2, slip stitch, and chain 1, and we're going to turn. Now what we slip stitched into was the stitch that belongs to this first shaft. So the next 2 stitches are your corner. Those are your corner chains. Okay? So when the front is towards you, you can see the front bottoms of all your stitches. When it's away from you, they're hiding on the other side. So we're going to have to dive over the crown into the other side and pick these out. So we're going to go over to the other side and we're going to pick the first of the 2 corner ones and do a slip stitch. Make sure it's a nice loose slip stitch because you don't want to pull your corners in. And there's another one. Now, from now on, this is probably the easiest row you'll ever do. A nice loose row of slip stitches all the way around. Okay, that's all it is to it. Alrighty? Alrighty. Okay, just went through my stitch just before where we went on. And this is your 2 corner stitches right here. And right in here is your chain 1. I'm going to sneak into this chain 1 and do your closing slip stitch. There. Yeah. The peculiar thing happens now when we turn it to the front. Our slip stitches are all in back. Okay, the front is facing us again, so our slip stitches are facing the back. So we're going to find the one that belongs to this shaft over here, which is the one that's wrapping around over in this direction. That's the one for the last post of this set. So the next 2 we know are the corners. So the next one wraps around this post, and this is the one we're going to use to start our variegated. So if you look in front, you see all these little divots, these little holes. That's the back of that's the turnover, or the back of your slip stitches. So if you slip right down inside that little hole, you get both sides of your slip stitch. I'm going to go ahead and put this on my favorite way. Chain 2. Do a little stretching and pulling. There we go. Now all we have to do is go down into these little divots and catch the whole slip stitch behind, both strands, and do that down to your corner. So you have a row of double crochets going in your slip stitches, both sides. Sometimes you catch the other ones and take a little peek. Make sure you're not getting 3 strands on it or just 1. Okay, go ahead, go down, and I will meet you at the corner. There, okay. Okay, here's our 2 cornered stitches. We're going to do 2 double crochets in each of those corner slip stitches. Chain 2, go back into the second one, make sure you get both sides of the slip stitch, and do 2 doubles in it, And that's all there is to a corner. No problem. You just continue on around. And I'll meet you at the end. Okay? Okay, we're on our last 2 stitches. And we're just going to do our 2 double crochets in each one like we did before. Chain 2 in the middle. Okay, now you can see this stitch goes to this shaft. So this stitch goes to this shaft. So we're going to go down that shaft, that stitch, and we're also going through the back one of this one, the back thread. There we go. Alrighty. Now I'm going to go get you working on the last row. Here we are back with our royal blue. Royalty. Royal. Different brands have different names for it, but it all comes out to be a royal blue. Now, see the way this comes off of here, okay? If you should make a corner and it should be like it's coming off of here, undo it, back it off 1 stitch this way, and redo the corner, and you'll have it in place. Same way if it looks like it's coming off this way, take it off, make 1 more stitch in the side, then do your corner, and it'll stick out right. Sometimes it's just the way you look at it, just doesn't turn out right. But it's easy to adjust. Okay. Stick our royalty on here. 1, 2. And you notice I'm going around, I'm going in the hole and around the slip stitch, the chain stitches. Okay, now, on every corner, the beginning one is easy because you go into that before you start the corner. But the last one is always difficult because you're partially covering it up. You've got to turn the stitch over to the back and wrap. And you see this little stitch right here, this little cross piece? Right there. That's what you're going to be looking for. It's hard to find on the ends because they're kind of scrunched. They're kind of scrunched. You do your double crochets in that. The rest of them are easy to find. There are all these little crossbars right here. Okay, so we just wrap, go in that little crossbar, do our double. And this has the effect of pulling the top stitches, the top of the stitches I should say, in front. And it actually looks like you've top stitched a line of slip stitches right across the top of your material. Of course, I know you didn't, and you know you didn't, but people are going to be wondering. Always keep on guessing. Okay, I'll do 1 more. Whoops. See what it's doing? Make that corner, that edge really stand out all the way around. Okay, so you go ahead and do that, and I'll come back to do the corners with you. We are at the last stitch before the corner. This one isn't warped. There's no problem getting into it. You do your 2 half doubles in the hole. Half doubles. 2 double crochets in the hole. Chain 2. Two more double crochets in the hole. Come over and find that poor little guy right down there, trying to hide from us. And you're easily on your way to the next side. See how that makes that look? It pops out more because you covered it here. Makes more of a contrast. Okay, so go ahead and do the rest of your outside and I'll meet you at the end. And you've actually finished the square. Go ahead and put 2 double crochets in this last corner. Chain 2. And this stitch goes with this shaft, so this is the one we want to crochet, slip stitch into. Okay. Bye, Golly. Okay. There we have it. Nice, huh? Okay, now I've got to go figure out how I'm going to connect these because I haven't decided that yet. I have 3 more I have to finish out to this size, and I'm going to work on that. You already know what it looks like because I showed you at the beginning, but I haven't seen it yet, okay? So, stick around. I'll be back in a few minutes for you, a few days for me. Bye-bye. Okay, I'm going to start with an apology. I decided to use the same color yarn for the edge, and I already had you chain 2 and tie off. Instead of chaining 2 and tying off, do it like you do when you continue a color. Chain 1, do a single crochet, and then we're going to chain up 1. Okay? Now, what I did here, I had already gone through all my things, all of my squares, and tied in the ends so that I couldn't find an end to work with. And this is what I ended up with. I had to put one in the back, weave it in, and come out here. So if you went ahead and finished all your edges already, I'm sorry, just tie one on and let's go with it, okay? So now this is called a barred slip stitch. It's something I made up about 2015. You drag it forward. We're going to go into the side, just leaving 1 thread through of the single crochet. And we're going to pull it through, holding that little thing down, let go, pull through the one on our hook. We're going to drag our feed line through. Got a little problem here because I have a knot. When you go through the hole, you hold this little feed thread with your thumbnail, pull it through. Once you get it through so it's past the feed line, you can let go of it. Pull it through the loop on your hook. So instead of doing a regular slip stitch where you go down like this, pull it through and pull it through, you're dragging your feed line forward, then you're going down in. Get in there. Okay, here's what I'm trying to do. I need to go through the back of my stitch and the little stitch behind it, the one we went into to make our front line here. So we're going to go to the top of the stitch and that little piece behind it. So I need to drag my feed line through, go down through those, grab the feed line with my thumb, and pull a loop up. Once you're past that little bar, let go of it and pull it through. That makes that come through with it and get tighter. Okay? So we're going to drag it forward. Sorry about the cat hair. Drag it forward, I have help with my feline friends here. Put it through those 2 loops. Drag it up. I'm looking at the camera instead of the thread. Drag it through. Let go of the little line. Drag it through. So it's drag, push, hold. Pull, release, and pull. Or you can just, after a while, you get so used to dragging it, it's just drag, push, pull. Drag, push, pull. Drag, push, pull. Now the act of dragging it forward and pushing it through those little holes, those lines, make sure you only have 2 of them. Not 3, Chris, 2. Thank you. It brings us down here where it's real easy to grab. Otherwise, it's going to be hard to get it through there. You have to twist it around to get it through there. So you pull it, push through there, grab it with your thumb, and it makes it real fast and easy to pull it through and up. So it's drag, push, pull, pull. Drag, push, pull, pull. See? Yeah. This is why I do this. See the edge here? When you hold it directly edge on, you see all the stitches. You hold it directly front, you don't see at the top of the stitch. All you see is the edge. If you look at it backwards, it's not facing you either. All you see is the edge. That's because it's directly squared off. If I can get it squared off for you. Don't bounce. Don't bounce. No bouncing. There we go. See? Absolutely squared off. So, that makes it really good for connecting pieces. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'll be back in a minute and show you the corner. Alright. And here's my corner with my 2 chains. Here's the stitch in front of it. So I'm going to drag, go to the top of that stitch, and that little bar and back. Bring it through and through. Now I'm going to drag forward and I'm going to go to this bottom thread right here of the chain. That leaves 2 threads of the chain on my hook. Bring it through and through. Now I chain 2. Drag it forward. I'm going to go through the bottom of the second chain. Right there. Oop. There we go. Pull it through. Come here, you. Come on. There we go. Come on. Come on. Good little boy. Okay, not a good little boy. Go through, grab, pull, and pull. Oh, okay, bear with me. Through the bottom, bring it through and through. Wow, did it. Okay, now, this is a stitch that goes to this line, so we're going to go in it. Through those 2 pieces, through and through. And here we are. Just like that. And there's your point. You have a nice pointy little corner. Okay? That's going to look real nice when we connect them together. You have a nice, strong, flat edge. Okay? Alright. So you do that around. And all we have left to do with these now is connect them together. And then we can put a border on them. Okay? Bye. Okay, back again. You put the pieces face to face to connect them. So here's, you can tell, here's the front of the one, here's the front of the other. You put them face to face. The next thing you do is you make sure you can identify the 2 corner stitches. Here's your corner stitches right here. Here's your corner stitches right here. Okay. So we're going to go through. We're going to go through one of them. under, so we got 2 of the stitches of the corner stitch on the hook. Pull through our thread. Okay, we're going to find the other one. We're going to go to the bottom stitch of the corner on this side. Come on, where are you? Come on. Come on, baby. It's this one. I'm trying to do the wrong one. There we go. We pull the stitch through there. So we have both corner stitches on the same side. And pull this through. Now I'm going to do something that I don't normally recommend, but it really helps me when I'm starting this so I don't get a loose end. I pull this down to where my hook's holding the loop, and I'm just going to give it a quick little single tie like that. Nothing big, no big knots or anything. It keeps this from coming through and making this beginning very loose. Okay? Now, we have our nice squared edge here. See how flat it is? See? So we're going to go through the outside of the first stitch, the one closest to us, and the outside of the other stitch, the one farthest away from us. There we go. And do a slip stitch. Okay, the one closest to us, the one farthest away, and slip stitch. Closest, farthest, slip stitch. Closest, farthest, slip stitch. Do that all the way down. Make sure your slip stitches aren't super tight. You want them snug, but not real tight. If they're real tight, they're going to pull your edge and pucker your squares. If they're too loose, you're going to really see the connection between them. Come on. You notice I get this little problem where I lose the boy. There we go. Okay. Now, that's what your edge is going to look like, just like that. See? Comes out really nice. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm connecting 3 panels at a time, and when I've got all 5 sets of 3, then I'm going to connect the 5 sets together. So let's go along, connect end to end, tie it off. End to end, tie it off. Then when you go connect 3 to 3, you'll be doing one long run down the middle. Okay? Now, because you're doing it right on in to your corner here, when you do it the other way, you're going to do it in to the other corner. And this is going to be very small, very tight, and you're going to have your distinct squared edges, okay? All right. So, that's how you do it. Really easy. Nice, easy slip stitch. Through and through, like that, see? And it's nice and flat on the back too. It's not a real high profile connection, see that? See? It's a low profile connection. And this is a very good stitch for when you're connecting different colors together. This is the back of these 2 squares that I connected. You can see it. You can see how flat it is? But look how it is on the front. You can't see. If you pull it apart, it pops right back together again. This was an alternative color that I made in a smaller square using 2, 4, 6, 8 rows of 4 colors, 2 of each color, 4 rows, and then doing the slip stitch, the barred slip stitch around the edge. And these are I think they're 9 inches or 8 inches. Just a minute, let me check. These are 8.5 inches. So I would do 4 of these across by 6 long, and then make a nice big border on it. It'd make a good throw, couch throw, or you could make it really big and make it like for a double bed, triple bed. You could do them all in this color, or do it like I did here, where these two stay the same. You have the white pink, but you have the dark on the outside, the gray on the outside, dark on the inside, gray on the inside. I just did them opposite each other. I like this one for a whole bedspread. My mom likes this one. And we both like the bright one. So go figure. But play around with your colors. You can play around with the size. You could even make small squares doing this by just smaller squares using just 3 colors. And bordering it, you'd have them with the border. It'd be about 7.5. Well, let's see. 1, 2, yeah, about 7.5 inches long with the border for connecting. Okay. Now you've done your panels of 1 together. Okay. Now you're just going to do this on a 3 panel. And what you want to do is you want to mark your ends. Make sure you have the right stitch on the end, on the corner. You want to mark the stitches on each side of the corner where you're going to connect them across here. So you got that. Okay. Now these stitches in the middle here, I counted in 12 from one end, 12 from the other, and then I counted the ones in between, and I had 1 extra on that side. So this tells me somewhere around in here to connect 2 stitches together. I did the same thing here, 2 stitches together. This one is even, so I don't have to worry about that one. I'll put the 2 stitches here. Go through one side, come over to the other, go through it. And you have the backs. I got an extra thread in there. Go through the back of this one, and the back of this one, that's the far side. And pull a marker through. There. So, I'm going to go down here. When I get to this point, I just go through this side and I go through both of those where I've marked it. Go through here. You should have seen me a while ago trying to do this. I had my big old cat laying on my yarn on my table here. That's the one that went through like a freight train a while back. Use a pistol. Okay, go through the next stitch, to the next stitch, outsides, bring your hook through, slip stitch, outside, outside. You've done this a lot of times, connecting all your pieces into 3 panels. 5 panels of 3, I should say. See? Okay. I'm going to go down here to where I have to connect 2 sides, one side to the other, where the count was wrong. Now here's where I go in 1 and I go in 2 of these. I'm just going to take this out, go in 1, pull a hook up, go into the next one like that. Pull it through that. Yeah, now I've connected 2 stitches to 1 stitch. Go a little beyond it. so it doesn't show up on the other side. You see, you can't tell where you connected 2 stitches to one. Nice and even. And your ends are nice and even. See here? You don't want one puckering out farther than the other. Okay. Now I'm going to go over to the corner and I'll be back. I'll show you how to connect it here. Okay, now go through our outside here and our outside to here. They're connected together. I got one more stitch to go on this side of the knot. Knots are hard. You just kind of bully your way through them. I'm coming through. I don't care what you say. Okay, now you go to the end here and the end here, which is why I put this little thing in. Okay, and you go through this end here. Have any extra shit we had to go through, pardon my French. Didn't have any extra things we had to go through there, except work around that fiddly little knot. I must be in a fiddly mood today. I'm fiddly this and fiddly that. There we go. Going beyond the stitch, the edge a few times. No hole. See? That's what we want. Okay. So I'm going to go on and do this panel like I did the other, where I have to add this center stitch. Come back and do this just like we did that. And we come back and finish the end just like we do our single panels when we're putting them together. And that's all there is to connecting them. Okay. Now when you get all of your panels connected, we're going to start on the outside. And I have a neat border that I made up for when I did Crochet Crowd's peppermint throw. And that worked out really good for that, and I think it'll be a good one for this one. Okay. See you later. Okay. I've got the whole blanket here that I finished. And I can't show you on here. I'm going to go spread it out on a bed somewhere, let you see it. But this is what your border looks like on the front. And this is what it looks like on the back. See? You get this nice line here by one particular way you insert your hook. Okay, there we go. Now I'm not going to show you on the dark color because it's too hard to see. So we're going to show you this way. Gray on gray. Okay. Now, about there. You pull your loop through the hook. Pull it through the second loop. So that's 2 stitches in a row. Go through both of them and then chain 2. Okay? This is to start it. You wrap, go behind, wrap, go behind, wrap, go into this second stitch, go into the next stitch. Actually, this next stitch is the one that actually belongs to the whole shaft we're making here. Go through 3 stitches, go through 4 stitches, go through 3. Wrap. Now the first couple ones look fiddly, but you can find it. There's a space between these 2 shafts. You want to go under this first back loop and down into that hole between the 2 shafts. Pull up a loop. Then you want to wrap. You want to go back down that hole. See this little crossbar here? You want to go above the crossbar. Then you wrap, go down into the stitch you just used, go into the next stitch, bring it through 3, bring it through 4, bring it through 3. Wrap, go under that top crossbar and into the hole between the shafts, the posts, bring up a loop, wrap, go through that same hole above that little bar, then wrap, go in the stitch you just used, and the next stitch. Through 3, through 4, through 3. All you have to do is make sure every time you go above that little crossbar, because that's going to give you that nice stitched looking line and back. And you just ignore it. You'll be going above it sometimes, below it sometimes, and your back is not going to look nice. I mean, maybe your back will, but the back of the crochet won't. Okay, there we go. See, got that nice stitch in back. Okay. Now, corners are a little different. You find your corner, your 2 stitches corner, the stitch in front of it and the stitch in back of it. This is going to be first stitch, 3 stitches, and 5th stitch, okay? So first I got to get to this first stitch. So do 1 more regular. There's that crossbar. There it is. Into that one and into the last stitch before the chain 2. Okay, now this first stitch and this 5th stitch in the corner group is called a transition stitches because it'll have 2 legs, 1 in a stitch and 1 in a chain 3, and it'll also have double stitches, chain 1s on it. So you chain 1. Since we're going around the corner, we need extra room. Wrap, go under that bar just like normal, and chain 1. Whoops, there. And chain 1. Wrap, go below, above that little crossbar, and wrap, go through the last stitch before the chain 2, go into the chain 2, go through 3, go through 4, go through 3. I don't need, wait a minute, I got somebody trying to crash the party over here. There we go. Okay. Now the next 3 stitches are going to be in only this, so you won't be going through 2 stitches. So you modify the bottom. So we chain 1, wrap, go under that, go into that little chain 1 stitch and behind, chain 1, wrap, go under, wrap, go into the chain 2 hole, pull it through 2 stitches because you only have 1 place you're going under, go through 4, go through 3, wrap and chain 1, wrap, go through that little stitch, little extra stitch you made, chain, wrap, go underneath, make sure you're over that little bar, wrap, go through the chain 2 space, go through 2, go through 4, go through 3. That's 2 inside the chain 3 space. Chain 1, wrap, go into the second chain, second part of that stitch, chain 1, wrap, go in the hole above that little bar, wrap, go into the chain 2 space, go through 2, go through 4, go through 3. Now you have 3 in the chain space only. You have your first transition stitch. The next one will be your last. So we wrap and chain 1, wrap, go in that second chain there, pull up a loop and chain 1, wrap, go into the back, wrap, go into the chain 2 space and into the chain 1 space. Go through 3, go through 5, go through 3. Wrap. Now this time you just have to remember to go through that little space there. We're done with our corner. Wrap, wrap, and space, stitch. There you go. There you go. And we made our corner. And I'm going to do a couple more so you can see that it balances out really nice. There. See how nice the corner turned out? There's no big holes. We didn't have to do spaces between the stitches. Nice and solid and pretty. And the back carries on our little line. And the top looks okay. Okay, so that's your corner. Now, gotta show you something else on this. I don't care what I do with it much, so I'm just going to show you how to connect these guys. Bear with me for a minute. Okay. I'm getting there. Do this one. Do this one. And I didn't wrap. Wrap first. Wrap first. That's a girl. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 3. Now, this stitch goes with. It's supposed to go with a stitch up here, and it's missing because the first stitch is actually the one that's over the second stitch. The second stitch you go into is actually the stitch that belongs to the shaft you just made. So this stitch belongs to the last stitch before it, okay? So, there you go. Okay. So wrap. I don't know if I did that out of camera or not. I hope not. rewrap to like normal. Okay. Wrap and go into this stitch and go into that stitch. Okay, now you can see that this stitch is carrying 2 stitches. This stitch is carrying 2 stitches. If you put any more in there, you'd be overkill. If it didn't have one in there, it's underkill. You need that stitch. Scissors. Okay, now, when your stitches are on the top, they go around and under the one in front of them. So we're going to pull this all the way up. Have a fairly good tail on there. We're going to go through here. Get under there. There we go. I didn't want the one under it. Pull this through. And come back through the top of the hole. And we're going to go down those 3 stitches. And pull it until it's the same size as the others on top. Okay? Now, this back stitch is supposed to belong above this back stitch. So we're going to kind of extend it back. Won't be perfect, but it'll show up pretty good. And we're going to go through here, and I'm going to grab this little front thread part of this so it helps pull it together better. Not much, just a little bit. There. See, this is the part that just went around here. Now I've got it almost so it comes over here. Okay? I'm just going to come in back. This thread, it looks like the one particular part of the thread had to look thicker than the other, huh? Now, if there's anything you want to do, like cheat a little more. Don't be piddling on me. Come on. There we go. Piddling little thing. Okay. So I'm going to take bring this up under here. And go into there. And that's a little better. Now just tie it off. I'm not going to tie this off because I want to take this apart. Then you just tie it off and weave your ends in. Now it's not going to look perfect, but it's going to look a lot better. In fact, you can just mess with it a little bit, back and forth until you got it looking. I could mess with it long enough to make it look pretty close to perfect. Let's see. Yeah, that probably would have been a better choice. This needs to pull over a little bit more. Okay, so anyway, just fudge with it back and forth. I could still mess with this until I've got it looking almost perfect. But trust me, in an entire Afghan, you're really not going to notice that one spot. And then just go in and weave in your back. And go back and forth until I have it looking almost perfect. Okay? All right. So that's how you do that. And I wanted to show you one more thing in case you wanted to do a contrasting border. This is for a contrasting border. See how pretty that looks in back? This is what it looks like if you do the way we just finished it. See, that's not as neat or as pretty as that one, is it? And there's only one thing you have to do to change. Really, really simple, easy change. Okay? You wrap and go behind like normal. Caught something there. Wrap and go behind. Wrap and go behind. And then instead of wrapping and going through the 2 stitches, you go through the first stitch and then wrap and go through the second stitch. And what that does is instead of having this crossbar, it brings it up over your hook. And then when you go through 3 and 4 and 3, it does this instead of that. Okay? So that's the only change you have to make if you're using contrasting border. Go through here like normal, go under here. Where'd my cross stitch go? Lost my cross stitch. Like normal. And then instead of wrapping, you go straight into the stitch, wrap, pull through, go through stitch, wrap, go through stitch, bring through 3, bring through 4, bring through 3. There you go. Okay, so you have that kind of sit back instead of that kind of back. That's the only change. Your corners are the same. Everything else is the same. This is a different pattern on here. And this is a different pattern on here. I tried 2 or 3 things. I'll show you the difference in these. I think if I didn't lock my thread. Okay. Now let's see. This one was, you want to bring your corner together. You want to bring these loops together. So you wrap, go behind the loops, and instead of wrapping, you go behind the loops again. Make sure you're above that little crossbar. You're going in contrasting threads, so I'm going to continue that by doing loop, wrap, loop, and you do through 3, do through 4, and through 2. Wrap. No patience with this thread today. Wrap, go behind like normal, go behind like normal here. You won't have that line because it's not being carried across. Then you go into the last stitch, wrap, go into the next stitch, wrap, come through 3, come through, no, pardon me, go through the stitch, wrap, go through the stitch, go through 2, go through 4, go through 3. No, that's not what I want to do either. Okay, strike that, reverse it. Okay. So you wrap, go behind like normal, but you don't wrap in between because you want these two together. So you go underneath, and I'm doing it on contrasting threads, so I'm going to go in the stitch, wrap, and go in the stitch. And you have only 7 loops on your hook with this stitch. Wrap, go through 3, wrap, go through 4, wrap, go through 2. You have 1 less stitch on your hook, so you have, oh, I hate it when I strip the thread. Last. Okay, wrap, go under, don't wrap, go under, then go in that bar, wrap, and that stitch, go through 3, go through 2, pardon me, go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3. That pulls it together, gives you a thicker top, or, as long as you get those two together, wrap, go under, wrap, go under, go in the stitch, wrap, go in the stitch. You can bring through 2, bring through all but the last 2. See? Oh, that's separate. I put a wrap in there, didn't I? Have it. I just did a whole afghan that way. Wrap, go under, wrap, no wrap, no wrap. Okay. Go under there. Go in the stitch, wrap, go in the stitch, whoops, stitch, go through 2, go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go through 2. Anytime you want to get those 2 middle ones together, you make sure that they are bunched together without a, oh, fudge. And that, and that one, and that one. And stitch, wrap, stitch, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 2. Okay. Now, I'm going to do the bottom of this like I did back here. I want to show you how you get these chevrons together. You wrap and you go behind like normal. But don't wrap again. Go right to the bottom. Bring up your stitch. Then you can go to your bottom 3 here. And you bring through 2. You bring through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and through 2. I don't like that extra bunch there. I'm going to wrap, go behind, go behind, go in, wrap, go in, pull through 2, pull through 1, 2, 3, 4, pull through 3. I like that better. Wrap, go behind, no wrap, go behind, no wrap, go in the stitch, wrap, go into the stitch. So you actually only have 2 wraps. You have the one above and the one between the 2 base stitches. go through 2, go through 1, 2, 3, 4, go through 3, wrap, behind, behind, in the stitch, and then wrap again, in the stitch, through 2, through 1, 2, 3, 4, and through 3. That brings them together and it gives you a long bottom. So many variations on this, it's incredible. Play around with it a little bit. Okay, now this one, to make them more spread apart, I bunched this bottom one with the bottom 3. Then I bunched the next 3 and then the top 3, so it's 3, 3, 3. That's all I did there. Just the way you bunch them totally changes the way the pattern looks. So you wrap, go behind. Go behind and in the hole. Then wrap, go under and in the hole. Then stitch, wrap, stitch, go through 3. No, wait a minute. Go through 4. Sorry. So it's stitch, wrap, stitch. You want this bottom one bunched with these bottoms. There, see? Then you want this top one bunched with these guys. So you go through 3, and you go through 3. So you have 4, 3, 3. Let's try that again without the mess, shall we? Okay. So you wrap, go behind. These 3 are going to be together, which will separate it from that one. Then you wrap, go under this one. Then you go through this stitch, wrap, go through this stitch, go through 2. Actually, go through 3. No, go through 4. Go through 4. And go through 3. And go through 3. Okay. Now, you can wrap and go through. This is very dense, so you don't have to worry about being too thin if you do it this way. Go through your stitch, wrap, go through your stitch, go through 2, go through 4, go through 4. All you have to do is pay attention to what you're doing and repeat it. So you write it down and repeat it. This yarn is a lot stiffer. Than the gray yarn I was using. So you want to bunch this with the bottom. And you want to bunch this separate from the bottom, separate from the top. See? Okay? Okie dokie. Now I already made this piece here because I'm going to show you afterwards how we connect the 2 sides. And I've done this 3 times already, and I just really don't need to do that little extra one again. Bring a slip stitch up through a hole, any hole. And you can either bring through both pieces or one. I prefer to bring up both. Okay, bring a loop through both and chain 2. In the instructions, it looks like this. Slip stitch, pull loop from next stitch, which is what we did here. Pull loop through both, chain 2. Okay? Now we're going to wrap, go behind. We're going to wrap, go behind. We're going to wrap and go below. In the next stitch. through 3, through 4, and through 3. Now, first couple stitches look like yuck anyway, but you want to go under this stitch and between the hole and through the hole that's between the posts. Then you wrap. You go under this back stitch you did here, and there's a little crossbar you want to look for. Go above it. Then you wrap, go in the stitch you just used, go in the next stitch, wrap, come through 3, come through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3. Wrap, go under that top back behind. Go through the hole between the two posts. Wrap, go below the last behind stitch, above that little crossbar in the hole between the two stitches. Then you wrap the same hole you're in, the next hole, through 3, through 4, through 3. Now this next hole is actually the stitch that belongs to the shaft we just made. Wrap, go behind, wrap, go below that and above that little crossbar, wrap, go in this stitch and the next stitch, through 3, through 4, through 3. So you wrap, W, go behind the post and pull up a loop, B, wrap, go behind wrap, go through the last stitch, go through the next stitch, and that's the SS. Pull loop through 3 unhook, 4 unhook, and 3 unhook. Instructions look like this. Wrap, behind, wrap, stitch, stitch. And you go through 3, through 4, through 3. So it's wrap, behind, wrap, behind, wrap, stitch, stitch. Wrap, wrap, stitch, stitch. Then through 3, then through 4, and then through 3. Okay? Now the front looks nice like this. The back has that nice line on it, and that's because you're going above that crossbar. You wrap, go under this first one, because it's see how the stitch goes in and wraps around? It's actually a 2-strand. Go under the top strand into the hole between those stitches. Wrap, go under the bottom one and above that little crossbar. Wrap, go in the stitch you just used, and the next stitch, which belongs to the shaft we're making here. Go through 3, go through 4, go through 3. Now, here's our corner with our 2 chains. Here's the last stitch before and the last stitch after. We're going to use these 5 differently. Now, the one between here and here is the transition stitch, and the one between here and here is the transition stitch. Okay, so for 1 and 5, we chain 1, because you need more room going around the corner. Wrap, go under this one, bring up a loop, and we're going to chain 1 in it. So you have 2 spots where you have chain 2. Then you wrap, go in the stitch you just went into, go into the chain 2 space, bring through 3 stitches. I forgot somebody. Okay, wrap, go under, then wrap, go into the space we just used, and into the chain 2 space, bring through 3, bring through 4, bring through 3. Chain 1, wrap, go through the extra chain that you put on that loop and between the 2 posts. Loop through. Chain 1. Wrap. You're wrapping between these posts. Go under this one and over that little crossbar. Wrap. go into the chain 2 space only. Bring it through 2 stitches. You only have 2 loops because you didn't have an extra stitch to go through. Go through 4, go through 3. Chain 1, wrap. Go through that extra chain that we made, bring a stitch through, and chain 1, wrap, go below, wrap, go through only the chain 2 stitches, go through 2 only, and go through 4, go through 3, chain 1. Now this is the first one, it's a transition. This is the second one going in here only. This is the third one going in here only. The fourth one, go through that chain, pull up a loop, chain 1, wrap, go underneath, over that little bar, wrap, go into the chain 2 space, go through 2 loops only, go through 4 loops, go through 3 loops. Now we have 1 here, 3 in the hole, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our last one, and it's going to be a transition. So we chain 1, wrap, go behind, go in that second chain we made, chain 1, wrap, go under and over that little bar, wrap, go in the chain 2 space, go in the next chain space, the very next chain, pull through 3 because you got 2 legs again, through 4 and through 3. Now you have a total of 5 stitches for your corner. Now you wrap, go in that that extra chain we put in there, bring up a loop, wrap, go behind, wrap, go in the first stitch and in the next stitch. Wrap, go behind, wrap, go under and above that little cross stitch, wrap, go in one hole, the next hole, through 3, through 4, through 3. Your corner is not going to look like it's a full corner until you've gone at least 2 stitches beyond, because it tends to want to rock back on itself. So before you check it out, do another at least 3 stitches. Okay, and there you have it. So your 2 transition stitches are chain 1, wrap, go behind, chain 1 on the little wrap, then wrap, go behind on the bottom half, wrap, slip, stitch, and stitch. So it's 3, 4, 3 like normal. But on the 3 center ones, number 2, 3, and 4, you do not have an extra stitch in the bottom. You do the top just like this, chain 1, wrap, behind, chain 1 on that behind stitch, wrap, behind, because you have to have a wrap between your 2 behind stitches. Then you wrap and you go into the chain 2 space. So this stitch is chain 2 space. Then you go through 2, 4, and 3. You do that 3 times, and then you do your second transition one, still chain 1, wrap, do the behind stitch, chain 1 on it, wrap, go behind, wrap, stitch, stitch, and it's 3, 4, 3, and then you're back to normal again. Okay? All right. Now, when you come back around, after you've completed your last stitch, and you want to end up in the same stitch you started with, so you have 2 stitches in each hole, 2 stitches in each hole, make sure you end up with 2 stitches in your last hole, okay? Second one of this one, the first one of the tie-on. Okay, now, see how these go around each other on top? You want to duplicate that. So this loop goes to this shaft. You need the loop that goes to this shaft, and that's the one that would normally be on your hook here. So when you get through with your last stitch, just pull the loop all the way out. See? These are the loops that would normally be through. You go through the top loop, because this is going to be the loop that belongs to this shaft. And then you come back down in here, and you want to come down between this 1, 2, 3 loops. And you want it just as tight as the others. You want it the same size. Okay, now bring your needle up behind here on top of this stitch. Go through your top stitch over here, and we're going to bring it down behind. So we're pulling this down so it looks like it belongs there, see? And we're going to come up under here. Make sure you come up above your little bar in back. I'm going to come up under here. I'm going to go to grab this second one. I'm going to go back in the same hole. And bring it over. That's okay. It's going to be pretty close. Pretty close. In the whole great Afghan, or bed throw, or whatever you're going to call it, bedspread, do not knot it until you are happy with it. Okay. Now, in an entire big bedspread, you are not going to really notice that. Honest. It won't be that obvious. But that's about the closest you can do with this. You want to make sure you have your top stitch that carries on, and then when you want to bring your stitches through, don't pull the wrap through like I did. Pull the bottom one through. Just stop and look at it for a little while and make sure you got it right. Okay? But that'll work for me. Okay? Now, one more thing I wanted to show you. When you do this with contrasting thread, this is what your back's going to look like. See here? Because you're going from loop to loop. When you go from loop to loop, it has to cross somewhere. It crosses between the loops. Now, if you don't want that, if you want your backs to look like this, all you do is modify how you make the bottom. The whole rest of the stitch is the same. What you will do is you do your wrap, go through like normal. Get through there. Come on. Wrap. Go under. Now, normally you wrap first. You don't do that first. You go into this bottom one, and then you wrap. And then you go through this one, and then you wrap. That brings that stitch up in between them instead of going across them. And then you go through your 3, through your 4, through your 3. So you wrap, go under and between, wrap, go under and between. The only thing is you won't have that crossbar. You lose the crossbar when you do that. Then instead of wrapping, you go right into the stitch you went into, then wrap, and then go to the stitch. Go through 3, go through 4, go through 3. Okay? And then your back looks like that instead of like that. So that's the only difference. You wrap between stitches instead of wrap and then go through both stitches. Okay, I almost did a contrasting yarn, but I didn't like the look of it, so I stayed with blue. Alrighty, I think we're done. We did the transition. I showed you how to do the contrasting. By golly. Now, for other types of stitches, other things you want to change, see, I've got this one like this, where it comes closer together. All you do is you don't do the wrap between the top and the bottom. You'll have less wraps. You'll have 7 wraps instead of 8. But you wrap, go behind, and then instead of wrapping, you go behind again. And then you wrap, and then you do your bottom stitches. And that pulls these close together. Now, all you want to do is make sure you do your bottom gather. You make sure one of your bottom gathers, and this bottom, these two here are together. So however you do your gathers, you want these together, and then the top. So let's do it. I think I got enough thread with this one. Yeah, I do. I'm going to change this to a together. So you're going to wrap, go behind, and then instead of wrapping, you just go behind again, and then you go under here, your wrap, under here, go through these 3, then you go through these 3 and 3. So you have 3, 3, and 3. Wrap, go behind, go behind, go under, go wrap, and under. Oh, I got my other stitch in. I don't need you there, baby. There we go. Okay, we go through 3. We go through 3. That brings these two guys together, and through 3. And you end up with a close chevron instead of a spread chevron. Now, if you want a really spread chevron, you wrap, go behind, wrap and go behind, stitch, wrap, stitch. I'm sticking with that stiff ratchet stitch because I'm doing it on contrast. And you go through 4, that brings this down here. And then you go through 3 and 3. Wrap, go behind, into the hole, wrap, go behind and into the hole. And I'm doing the stitch, wrap, stitch. Go through 4, because that brings us down, and then through 3, and then through 3. And you end up with a top and bottom line. You have no connection whatsoever here. Makes it wider. Okay? And then you just make sure that they're gathered together in the same stitch with no wrap in between if you wanted a pointy, like a pointy little chevron. Okay? Try some different combinations. All the different combinations do different things, and you might as well have fun with them. Okay? So, border stitch, you slip stitch, pull a loop from the next stitch so that you have 2 loops. Pull a loop through both. Chain 2. That gives you your first shaft. Wrap, go behind the stitch, wrap, go behind the stitch, go through the last stitch, go through the next stitch, slip stitch. 2, 2. So it's wrap, behind, stitch, stitch. Wrap, behind, wrap, stitch, stitch. And if you want the contrast, you wrap behind, stitch, wrap, stitch. Okay? For your corners, you have 5 stitches in your corner. The first corner is the transition between the last stitch that you had and the next stitch. So you chain 1, which gives you 2 stitches on the top. You wrap, you go behind your stitch as always, but you chain 1. Then you wrap, and then you go down and do your bottom. You have stitch, stitch. Go through 3, 4, and 3. The next 3 stitches are only in the chain 2. So you chain 1, wrap, go into that little chain when you go behind. Chain 1, then go behind, and then wrap, go through your chain, and go through 2 stitches, because you're not going through 2, you don't have 2 legs. You're doing a pogo stick here, 1 stitch. So you go through 2 stitches, and then 4 stitches, and then 3 stitches, okay? So that's chain 1, wrap, go behind through that second little stitch, chain 1, wrap, behind, wrap, stitch. That stitch is the chain 2 space. And then you go back up 2, 4, 3. Okay? All right. I think we're done with the borders. So that's the whole project. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you try it. If you do not want to do one of these complicated borders, let's see. I need a loose one here. How about you? I'll do you. If you don't want to do a complicated border, and you don't need to use 2 legs if you don't want to. Chain 2, do a row of half double crochets. Okay. Okay, you do a row of half doubles around. And then you can use the same thread or contrasting thread, however you want to do it. You come back, tie in like normal, and chain. And you can make this double or half double, however you want. Oh, I forgot we're going to go behind there, aren't we? Okay, because I'm going to show you we can do the behind stitch like we did on these squares. And make this type of a border. Okay, so we will go through the back stitch and tie on. And for this I recommend using 1 strand instead of 2. And chain 1, then wrap, go behind the next one, wrap, go behind the next one, see, you'll bring this forward. And you'll have an interesting border. You can also do both of these. Okay. And then go through both of these and you'll have it in back and you'll have the single line in front. See? For the corners, you want to have 5 in your corner, but you'll do stitch, space on stop. So it'll be stitch, space, then you do your next stitch, and space, like that. And you'll be able to go around your corner okay. Same with these down here. Okay. Okay, anyway, have some fun with your borders if you like. Try different combinations of different things. I'm sure if you've been crocheting a while, you have at least one square you can play with. If not, make a simple square so you can practice on corners and edges and see what you like, okay? It's fun to do. It's fun to try things. All right. Happy hooking, guys. I love talking to you. Bye-bye.